You can support the Dungeon Masters Dojo in some very simple ways. Be patronizing, like Lou, and become a patron on Patreon and unlock exclusive patron content.
Or if you're like Scott and long-term commitment is an issue, you can buy a Sasaki, shop our merch page for DMD swag, or use our Drive-Thru RPG affiliate link next time you shop Drive-Thru RPG.
Or visit us on the web at thedungeonmastersdojo.com. There, you'll find links to all the above. Don't forget to email us and say hello.
Thanks for listening.
Scott, dude, what's with the turtleneck, beret, and pipe?
Don't forget the John Lennon sunglasses.
You look ridiculous.
It's called fashion, Lewis. If you must know, I've been taking acting classes to be a better role player. I'm an actor now, like Morgan Freeman.
Take those damn sunglasses off. You're indoors.
It's 5 more ways to get your players to roleplay this week on the Dungeon Masters Dojo.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Dungeon Masters Dojo podcast. This is a show for game masters and players alike. We hope to bring you tips and tricks to elevate your game and develop the art of dungeon mastery. I'm your host, Louis Aponte, and these are your dungeon masters, Scott Labby and Bill Robitaille. Let's enter the dojo and see what they have in store for us today.
Real gentlemen don't wear sunglasses indoors.
Or a hat.
High fashion gentlemen do. And a beret doesn't qualify as a hat.
What is it, a forehead diaper?
It's headwear. It's a fashion piece.
Or even a turtleneck
It's like
in
an
this
ascot.
weather?
Yeah, it is
Really?
a little warm.
Yeah, you're an ass, Scott.
But I'm pumping. I didn't say it.
That's because it was clever.
Oh! Wow. Yes, we do love each other.
Yeah, mostly.
Well, tolerate's more like it, but
So the key to getting your players to role play, take acting classes.
well,
And,
yeah.
yeah, not quite. There is less expensive ways of doing that.
Let's go over a few of those points, shall we?
Yeah, I know. You know, with all these actors out there now playing D&D on social media, right? Now all these high profile people are playing D&D.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them out there now.
But not all play D&D.
Some of them get fired into space in a giant penis.
Yay!
So it can seem pretty daunting to a new player to kind of test their role-playing chops after watching the Matt Mercers and Joe Manganiellas and all these actors that are trained actors playing D&D. But, I mean, not all of us, after all, are trained actors. But the good news is you don't have to be, right?
No, you do not.
Proof positive that your normal run-of-the-mill people can be content creators, right? We're doing it. I wouldn't say we're doing it well, but we're doing
it. Well enough for people to keep referring back to us, I guess.
We have a small army of very bored individuals that have nothing better to do with their time than to listen to a bunch of senile old men talk about playing games.
I think there's a lottery out there somewhere going, all right, we have to guess which one's drunk this week.
Oh, I was going to say, which one's going to go first?
No, not a ghoul pool. More like a drool pool. But
so we talked about 5 ways to get your players to role play, right, on another episode. But 5 just kind of scratches the surface, doesn't it?
Oh,
There's a whole lot of other things that you can have in your DM's tool belt in addition to those 5, which are probably some of my favorites.
We're just kind of hitting the high points.
Yeah. And this is enough to really get you going and test it out and develop some of your own skills at getting your players to really invest in their characters and do some role playing, because when role playing is happening at the table, it's a much better game than if it's not.
Well, it is called tabletop role playing game.
It's
kind of like, it's really in the name and everything.
Yeah. So it should be there. It's easier for kids.
Oh yeah, because they're role playing all the time.
Yeah.
As you get an adult, you kind of have a tendency to lose your imagination and your tendencies or willingness to slip into characters.
But they also don't suffer from the inhibitions that we do.
Right.
What's that word?
Exactly.
Inhibitions. Yeah. It's
Could you clarify?
it's very
I'm
freeing.
I'm not familiar with this word.
It's being free.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But one of the things I've found with, I mean, having played for 40 some odd years, that gamers that have been playing for a while, they have no such inhibitions. They have no concern of being embarrassed or being embarrassing.
Which is evident by the multiple times you've mentioned how you were talking to yourself in character, fleshing things out as you're driving with other people looking at you, trying to figure out what the hell is this whack job doing.
Yeah.
I don't see an earbud, so it can't be normal.
Yeah, and that it's not by today's modern standards. In the ancient world, that would have been thought of as gifted.
Yes.
But today, I'm just nuts. That's okay though. And I'm not taking medication for it.
You should.
No, because then that's going to stifle all my creativity.
We don't want him stifled.
Heck no. Showers would be so boring.
There's some times where he could be stifled.
Well, that's a whole other subject. We'll get into that later.
This is let's probably
not. We'll gloss right past that. Right?
You're not talking about some like David Carradine shit, are you?
We're moving on.
We're moving on. All right, let's start this off, shall we? Let's get into our 5 points.
Five more
points. Number 1, or is it 6? Either way, insist your players speak as their characters in the first person, or in Lou's case, the third person, because he likes to piss everybody off with that.
Sometimes he'll do that. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Really important, right?
Yeah. Well, it aggravates me when people turn, my character's going to do this. My character's going to do this. My character's, and I'll look at him and go, okay, then do it.
Yeah.
Role play it.
Just do it.
Yeah. Role play it. Well, I want to tell him, don't tell me you're going to tell him. Tell him.
Yeah.
Have your character tell him. And I'll force that point on him a lot of times.
And not you, your character.
Right. Yeah. Right. Have your character talk to his character.
Bill, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to say to you.
I turned to Magnar, the something broadband, and I don't know.
Well, we know who's winning the pool this week.
No more beer for you.
And the lucky number is Scott.
So I Ooh, you're welcome, guys. If you happen to have your money on me, I expect at least 10%. Yeah. So I turned to Magnar, flowing hair, and I say whatever I say. Now,
well, let's hear what you're going to say.
How
do people know what you're going to say if you can't even give an example?
Right. What conditioner dost thou useth? For thine hair is
the flowing silver locks.
It's all natural.
It's all natural.
Oh, so he uses pigeon shit.
Yeah. Dawn dish soap. But speak as your character, right? Not that I'm going to, or he's going to, or she's. It's speak the words that
my character wants to. You know, it drives me nuts.
It's not like saying Kalevala. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to hit that gnome. Walk up and hit the gnome.
Hit that gnome.
Yeah. Yes.
It's important that you do that. That's where the immersion begins. That's where your players are going to become the character that they designed, right? What's the point of spending all this time and effort to build a character if you're not going to embrace it in its fullest?
Remember, it's not a character on a piece of paper. You're building a persona.
Yeah.
Adopt the persona.
That's the best way to put it.
Be the person. And that way, when you speak in the first person, you're speaking as that persona, not as the player, as the character. And just remember that, the piece of paper in front of you is a representation of the person you're trying to portray. This is just reminder notes of where you need to be and where you're going to be going. Don't keep looking at your character sheet going, oh, I have an intelligence of 13. How smart am I?
You're smart if you have a 13.
Yeah,
if you really think about it.
13's average, a little bit above average. Right? You're not a genius, but you're not an idiot either. So just play your character. Now, if you want to play your stats, that's fine. A lot of people will have dump stats, or they'll play the min max, and they'll play to those points. But those are usually your players that are a little bit more seasoned, so they'll know how to play to those. But when you're first starting out, you're usually right there in that 10 to 15 range, which is average, above average on every stat. So just be you, but be you in the other persona. You don't have to try to be stupid. You don't have to try to be smart. Just be your character.
Yeah, and you can take a lot from like theater and TV, and granted, by doing so doesn't mean you have to be as good as those people portraying those characters, but watch them. Nobody up on the stage ever says, I'm going to walk over here and I'm going to do this, or I'm going to walk over there and I'm going to talk to so-and-so, right? They walk over there and they do that, and they do that in their character. Think of it the same way.
Yeah,
you're
acting out a play. You're just not
Yes.
walking around. You're sitting, but
Yeah. It's just a play with a table full of Hot Pockets and Mountain Dew.
and Funyuns.
And Funyuns.
Ooh.
At our age, Hot Pockets and Funyuns the next day, it's really dangerous.
Yeah, that's not good. So Jell-O and
Tapioca.
Tapioca. No,
That's
there's no
good
Jell-O.
stuff.
No Jell-O. Tapioca.
Tapioca, some good stuff.
That's my jam, man.
That's how you know you're old.
Yeah. I liked tapioca when I was a kid.
I
Then
did
again,
too.
I've never been a kid, so I guess it kind of pans out, right?
I actually was at one point in time, and I did enjoy tapioca. It's good stuff. I like the texture.
Yes.
It's a texture thing.
Large pearl is best.
Yes.
We're going to move on.
DMs.
Important. Listen.
Really important. Address your players by their character's name. Not Lou. Roll initiative. Who's Lou?
Exactly.
Right. Graven.
Okay, let me get
What
my
do you
dice.
do?
I pull my gun out and I shoot him.
That is the answer to every Graven question I've ever asked.
Yeah,
by the
pretty
way.
much. Or I'm building a bomb.
That's the other one.
Or, well, the one that I really like is when they sat down that bowl of worms in front of us, those orcs. And I said, because I didn't think they spoke common, I'm not eating this garbage. Only barbarians do. And then shit hit the fan. And I said, well, I'm walking across the table because he challenged me. And I walked across the table and
Accepted his challenge
accepted his challenge.
immediately.
By
We won't go that far. We'll leave the suspense.
by shooting him.
In the face.
Which was good role play, because that was not only was it really funny, because then I got to have a really big battle in the middle of an orc camp, which was very gratifying for me.
Even
But-
if it was unanticipated.
yeah, but it was okay. This is what the character would do. It's not like he's stepping outside of the persona he created.
Correct.
For that
because
character.
he thought he was above everybody else. He was proper, and he wasn't eating barbaric food.
I just had this image of Vern Troyer in like period garb with a gigantic pistol with a long barrel, waddling across the table and gunning someone down.
That's the same vision I had.
So address your players by their character's name. Once your players sit down at the table and the game opens up, they are no longer Bill or Lou or Marcus or Korik or Sin. They're Graven, Kasim, Iskander, Doriana.
And make your players do the same thing.
When they address
When
one
they
another.
address one another, address one another, character name to character name. Don't, all right, Lou, what's Graven going to do? No.
As a matter of
It's,
fact, I think it was Marcus and then Bill put these place cards together.
Yes.
So like when we first start out, because when you first start out, you're not remembering everybody's name.
Mhm.
So we have place
We're
cards.
getting to that.
Okay, let me take that back.
Take that back.
I take it back.
Edit that out. Why don't get ahead.
Read,
Read
yeah, you didn't read the.
read the bullet points, Lou.
you know I don't read bullet points.
I know you don't read.
Oh, I read. I just don't read
Bullet
what you-
points.
bullet points.
That's the purpose for the episode outline, Lewis, is so that we can do that sort
Oh,
of
I
thing.
see it. I
So-
see it
so
now.
there- yeah,
I glossed over it. Sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, you glossed. So character names are important because it helps reinforce keeping them in the moment and in character. repeatedly as people are constantly referring to one another in their character names, then as a game master included, that keeps everyone immersed into their character.
And
it's important to do so.
Game masters, it's your job to set the tone.
Yep.
Set the table
It
tone.
is.
And that is one way of doing that.
It's a
one
good way. It's
big
a,
way.
Not only setting a tone, it's setting a habit.
Yeah,
Because if the DM doesn't do it, if I'm running a game, I'm saying Scott, Bill, Marcus, everybody else, why should everybody else do it?
Right. Lead by example.
Yep, absolutely. And it'll like you said, it'll just become a habit. The more often you play, the less you'll hear players' names, the more you'll hear characters' names, and the more they will become immersed in their character. It seems like really small and it's not going to have any impact whatsoever, but you'd be surprised at how big of an impact that it does have.
Well, I've seen times where we've finished the game, gone out into the parking lot. We usually bullshit before everyone takes off, and people are still addressing each other in the parking lot after the game in character name.
It's habit forming.
Yeah, and that's a good habit. That's the habit you want to have. Now, there's another point that we've gone over a gazillion times, but it bears repeating.
And there's a reason.
A character backstory is important for role-playing, and every character should have one. And it doesn't matter if it's large or small, but you got to have something to start with.
Right. It adds that extra layer. It adds that flavor to the character that would be missing if they didn't have a backstory, right? Everybody's got a past.
Well, it offers reference points.
Yep.
It's your reference points that you're building your character off of.
And we do have an episode on backstories. We talk about it all the time. Matt Fillion, who is a wonderful author and a wonderful person, was gracious enough to join us.
Mm-hmm.
And for that episode. And I mean, it's what he does for a living.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he writes characters. He writes
He
books
writes book. Yeah. And the first half of the book is backstory. Every character has to have a backstory at some point.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be sweeping. It's not Gone with the Wind. If you're not much of a writer, that's fine.
Bullet points.
Bullet points. That's for a creative DM. That's even better. I want to see like 10 good bullet points. Don't give me a lot of background because then I could take artistic license. Then I'm like, oh, okay. And make it so that we say this all the time, right? We don't want to see what kind of backstory. Fucking orphans.
Yeah.
You're not an orphan. This is a little orphan Annie. It's overused. Stop it.
Yeah, I see that. I throw it back at him going, rewrite.
Yep.
Or I will give you a family you didn't know you had.
Yeah. And boy, it's going to be dysfunctional. What I think makes a wonderful character and makes a wonderful hero is their imperfection. I don't want to see perfect heroes. That's boring.
Yeah.
I want to see someone that did some shady shit at some point in time, maybe regrets it now and is trying to make up for it. I want to see someone that's real.
Lou has this contemplative look on his
I was just thinking
face.
about a backstory for another character I have. When he said that, I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
It made something click.
Well, I mean, you have your high points and you have your low points, and they're both good plot points for your game master. And they're going to have a lot more fun with the negative plot points because, in real life, you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your failures.
Right.
And your characters are going to be the same way. So they're trying to rectify, they're trying to reconcile, they're trying to pay homage or something that has happened in their past that has left an indelible mark on their personality and their thought processes. And that's what the game master wants to build off of. That's what why he wants the backstory. So he can include your character in the oversweeping plot. And if everything goes right, then you're right, it's boring.
Yeah, it's the first season of Star Trek The Next Generation. And nobody liked that, except for Gene Roddenberry. But
yeah,
we had our first 7-year campaign that we did with our week-long gaming getaway. We had 2 tables full of just characters that weren't heroes, but they did heroic things. They were just broken individuals that were grossly imperfect. They weren't villains by any stretch.
No, they were just simply fucked up.
They were dysfunctional.
Yeah.
They were we had Mullef at the extreme right, who was a zealot and rigid, and Len at the extreme left, who did a bunch of really shady, crooked stuff.
Killed people.
That was his role. And then in the middle was Kaisi, who was a little bit of both. He was like the bridge between the two of those extremes, and he had poisoned someone and killed them out of revenge. And there were all these other just damaged people. Lenir was inches away from being a villain, and
Mere inches.
Yeah. And Solinar was just a broken,
power hungry mage.
Yeah. Power hungry is and they were wildly entertaining because they were so imperfect. So when you design your backstory, make sure that there's some imperfections there to add depth to the character. And with that depth comes role-playing opportunities, because if you are the pillar of morality, paragon of virtue, paladin astride the white stallion, and everything you do is good, and you're good at everything, and you're wonderful, you've just become one of those shitty Steven Seagal characters from his shitty-ass movies, and nobody likes those movies except for Steven Seagal, and they're boring and they're dreadful, so don't be a Steven Seagal character.
No, by no means.
Yeah. Do something.
We'll start with, I mean, you need a bigger horse because
Steven Seagal's about as big as a horse.
About as big as a horse.
And Steven, if you're listening, please don't come and kick my ass, because it would be an honor.
He'd have to catch you first.
He'd have to catch me first. Yeah, there's
even in your
I'm a speedster.
comparatively speaking, yeah.
Well,
until you get downhill, if he goes into a roll, you're doomed.
I'd be like Indiana Jones.
Hug the curb, it'll go right over you.
That was play dead. He'll just maul you a little bit. Hopefully, he won't eat you. That's awful.
Shame on you.
Unless you have like one of those ketchup packets in your pocket and it breaks, then you're doomed. You smell like a buffet.
One of these days, he's gonna come kicking in the door and Aikido the shit out of us, which would be cool if we'll put it on Patreon if that happens. I'll take an ass whooping from Steven Seagal to get a little revenue in here. You know,
it may take a day or three to do it.
Well, you got to take constant breaks. I'll make sure there's a chair for him to sit down and rest.
He does a lot of that in his movies too. A lot of sitting. But as we often do, we digressed. Character backstory of extreme importance for role playing. Take the time and do it. DMs, insist your characters do it, even if it is just bullet points, because that's going to come in handy with the side plots that we discussed that every character should have in our last episode on role playing.
Absolutely. Hey, Lou, why don't you do the next point for us?
Yeah, Lou.
PT name tag character. See, this is why I skipped over it. It's supposed to be put name tags and characters' portraits in front of your players.
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that is actually player, but I'm so used to when I'm writing things, PT means patient. So that was just was my day
and there's
off
tons
too.
of patience here at this table.
Try that one again. I fixed it.
Player name tags and character portraits in front of other players.
In front of your players.
I don't have my glasses on. Let me put them on. Hold on.
They're like right there. Put your glasses on. You're not 20 anymore. You haven't been 20 in like 40 years.
That looks a little bit better.
Oh, good. Do you need a bigger screen? Should we put it on Pato Vision behind Bill?
No, we're good.
On the 60-inch screen?
But yes, player name tags and portraits do help.
They do.
Could you give us an example?
Well, I remember this one year where Marcus and Bill came up and had these little What were they called, Bill?
Plastic placards.
Yeah, the plastic yeah. I'm not drinking no more either.
It's scary one.
Have
I'm
some
the sober
M&Ms.
one.
The plastic placards.
Yep.
And the next thing we knew, we all had characters with all our stats on our side.
Yep.
But our name and our portrait was on the other side.
Yep.
So I can do, Bill's playing Mullif. Oh, Scott's playing Caligula. I didn't have to think about it the first couple times. I just, because we're always looking down at the table.
Right.
Yeah.
It's always right in front of you.
And that's Bill's got a quick tip on
Yes, he
that.
does.
I think it was the first year.
Yeah, it's really early on those.
But these were we use a plastic like placard that sits, in front of our players. My God,
Lou's doling out M&Ms out of a
he's
jar
dumping
here.
them all over the place.
If you hear chewing, you know why.
A plastic placards there that are clear that you could like slide these little cards in.
Yep.
And it had the character portrait, so you had an idea of what the character looked like. I think that's really important to role play, and the character's name, so you always had it in front of you. And when we went away this past February, we did exactly that.
Right, because we had brand new characters of what everyone playing, and we actually made Scott designed, and we had him made a whole bunch of figs from Hero Forge, and we just took the portrait from the Hero Forge website and transferred it over, and that's the picture that went on the front. So when we actually showed up for the week long, or actually, it was our week long where we were recording live play. Everyone had their placard in front of them with the picture that actually was the exact duplicate of the fig that we handed them, because they didn't realize we had figs made for them. It was a little gift from us to them. So we had their figurines as well.
And to go along with that, even if you're not ordering from Hero Forge, if you're just using that to design it, you can take the snapshot.
Yep.
And just use that still.
Yep, but that
It's
would
free to design.
Yeah.
and it's great because you have this nice visual for everyone else. I mean, you've been staring at it a while. You want everyone else to know what you look
Yeah.
like. So this is a nice visual, so they can turn around and see who they're talking to, and that helps considerably with the immersion.
I have a funny story. It's funny now. It wasn't at the time that I want to share with the listeners.
Oh, please do. While you do, I'm going to grab some M&Ms.
So we designed these minis, and they're really nice. We had them painted and everything. We got the pre-painted minis from Hero Forge.
And we're moving on.
Did you mute? Don't mute me.
I did. I muted myself so I
Okay.
could eat my M&Ms without crunching into our listeners' ears.
And we didn't even start playing it. Now this is a $55 mini that's like an inch tall. And Lou was playing a grung. Grung are little. So a grung mini is even minier than like the other minis. And Lou is standing there, and he drops it from a full 6 feet to the hard tiled floor. I think they were like ceramic tiles, and the arm broke off. The cool arm, the one casting the acid spray spell. And I thought Lou was going to cry.
I almost did.
I thought I was going to cry.
I think you actually did. And the fun part, he picked up this fig, and he props it up on top of, I don't know, it was I don't want to say a DM screen, but it was something you had, in front of you. Maybe it was the top of your laptop, or I think that's
It
what
was
it was.
something like that, yeah.
But he puts it up there, and someone goes, that's probably a bad idea. Yeah, you're probably right, but it'll be fine. Seconds later, oh, shit!
Falls down again. Didn't break. So the next morning after breakfast, I'm sitting at the table with super glue, a paper plate full of baking soda, and a spoon. So to the casual observer, it looked like I was having a big pile of cocaine for breakfast, just like Scarface. But we were able to repair Mokui's broken arm, which is not an easy feat because I have giant fingers.
But it was a good job.
That's my story. It was not funny at the time.
It's funny now.
It's funny
As a matter of fact, that thumbnail is going to be on this episode of him fixed, not broken.
What, no before and after photos?
I don't think I took any. I was too sad.
I have to admit, you were genuinely despondent. You're sitting there like, The little kid that broke like the jar in the living room, and mom goes, "What was that?"
Nothing.
He just looked around with this "I am so screwed" look on his face as he's holding the pieces in his hand.
I haven't even played with it yet.
We literally handed it to him, I think maybe 5 minutes before that.
Yeah, this is.
It was within a 5-minute block
Yeah.
of him being handed his brand new
He
fig.
said,
What it
this
was
is really nice.
Somebody said, "You're going to drop that." And that's what did it.
It's always somebody else's
Yes,
fault.
the propping it up on this razor thin edge, balanced there precariously around a table full of guys, bumping the table and stuff. That hadn't have anything to do with this because someone said you were going to drop it.
And we're moving on.
So if you don't have figs, in the old days, we didn't have the fancy plastic placards. We just literally took a piece of paper and
My name is.
folded it into a tent, put our name on it, a little description, our class, our race, and that's it. And on the backside, you'd put a lot of quick pertinent information like your AC, your hit points, stuff like that. And we were doing that since way back when. Yep. We just modernized it for our group, and I think it works out.
We're
a little
fancier now.
Yeah.
Back in the old days, it was all pen and paper.
That's all.
And graph paper. Just write it on graph paper.
And Chet would always draw a giant penis, and with his character's name on there, and it would be the most detailed phallus ever. But
that's Chet.
That's what it's like when you're 40, right? Still funny.
All right. And our last point. Start simple. You don't need to use a special voice or accent to be effective at role-playing. It's just a bonus, especially for the game master who's running a lot of NPCs. If you have the skill where you can differentiate your NPCs with some kind of quirk or dialogue or some accent, that helps the players, number one, get him, a little bit more involved and identification of who they're dealing with. But as a player, sometimes it's difficult to do this repeatedly and constantly if you're not a little practiced at it.
I got a very nice compliment from a young lady that was at our table at Rising Phoenix Game Con.
Julie?
Yeah. Yep. And she said, that was the best crazy eyes on an NPC I've ever seen.
Yes.
I was like, thank you. Insanity comes easy to me.
Doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?
One of those instances where he was drunk enough to get that one-eyed wander off the one side.
Whatever it takes, man. Sacrifice for my craft. Start with role-playing. And then if you could do voices, great. If you can't do voices, you don't have to. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's not necessary.
It's not.
Well, it helps, but it's not mandatory. I won't say it's not necessary. It's not mandatory.
It certainly isn't. And you don't want to discourage anybody that can't do a voice well from playing or participating.
Absolutely. You
can behave as your character would behave and do all those other things we suggested, but it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to be a character actor to do that.
Although it is fun watching one person stick to an Irish brogue or a Scottish accent or something like that, and eventually the whole table's doing it.
It is infectious, yes.
And it will happen. It will happen. It's fun, though.
Slowly it becomes the BBC.
You've gone from charging a ziggurat to Faulty Towers.
And that's 5 more ways to get your players to roleplay. We'll see you next time in the dojo.
That's going to conclude this episode. Thanks for tuning in and listening. Please subscribe to the podcast for more great content. If you'd like to hear a particular topic, you can reach us on Facebook at the Dungeon Masters Dojo, or you can drop us an email at thedungeonmastersdojo@gmail.com. Thank you, and have a good day.